So you guys can turn on your microphones.
Okay.
Do you want to hit the button on that mic? And then
So this will be your mic.
Oh, perfect.
And we are live. We're waiting for.
Well, let's just start.
Okay.
We don't need to, there's time is of the essence.
Okay.
Keep this
If you
party
need to
going.
get her on there too,
Okay.
you just could. So,
Okay.
but yeah.
who's this?
Emily.
Oh, that is?
Well, he's saying she would dial in, but I'm just gonna tell her
Okay.
to. Okay.
Is red mean it's hot?
Yep. That means it's hot.
Yeah.
Kelly, call this.
Yeah.
Alpine. Okay, how do I do that? Alpine Public Education.
It is.
Committee, it's April 18th. It is 5:08 PM and
This meeting to order. We have
calling this meeting to order. We have a quorum of the committee present.
3 members.
3 members, Shay Scavidi, myself, Kelly Shackelford, and Jordan Kurt Mason, and our strategist, Jeff Doherty.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead and just turn the time over to you, Jeff, and let you kind of present on the good work that you've done. Just want to be on the record saying thank you for everything you've done so far. So.
Thank you. And first of all, thank you to the town of Alpine and to this committee. This has been a really amazing, fun, interesting project for me. So for the benefit of the public who, I don't know if we're streaming, but for the benefit of the public who may be here or watching online, my name's Jeff Doherty. I'm a consultant for the town working under the authority and direction of this committee. I own a company in Cheyenne called Doherty Strategies, LLC. I was tasked with 2 things. One is to create a pathway, and in no particular order, but create a pathway for a charter school, and then to help this committee find a pathway forward through what I'll call a traditional K-12 process. So we went through the legislative session and were able to get that pathway open for a charter school path. And so this is the fulfillment of the other provision of my agreement with you to do this. So, Madam Chair, you'll be delighted. I've practiced this twice to make sure I can do it. I tried to get it under 30. I'm at 31. So I did have, and I would appreciate some direction. This is broken into about 3 parts. And I have paused for question note in here. But if you'd like, I can just hurry and go through it all since we know that you need to leave. So maybe I go through it all if it's okay with the chair. All right, so awesome.
It's like, come on.
So what we're doing here is waiting for my computer to boot back up.
It was
Maybe.
like, I was ready, and you just kept.
Now I'm not.
Good, so everybody has my password now, good. Okay, so what I've tried to do here, Madam Chair, is this is a very dense presentation, and I do not expect you or any of the members of the public to commit any of this to memory. What I tried to do was to create a clearinghouse, a location for all of this information to live. You'll notice as we go through this that almost everything is hyperlinked. So, Madam Chair, if you're, or I'm happy to do it too, we can share this with any of the members of the committee, and then they can have access to each of these slides. And the reason I hyperlinked them is because they're constantly being reviewed and amended, and my hope is that hyperlink takes you to whatever the most recent version of those rules and statutes that we're going to talk about in just a second. So I tried to cut and paste wherever possible in here so that it wasn't my opinion, it was more exactly what the state says about certain things in here. So the first part I'm gonna start with is the state construction department and the school facilities process. So the state construction department is broken into 2 parts. First of all, the state construction side does like prisons, university buildings, any vertical, the remodel of the state capitol, they do any vertical construction. They don't do roads, YDOT does horizontal, but they do all the vertical. Now within that department there are 2 divisions, one the side that does all the state projects that I just described, and then another side that does all the school facilities stuff. So they do all of the new construction, they do all the major remodels, They do the facility planning with the districts. So they have a lot of work to do. There are 48 districts in the state, probably a little over 500 buildings in the state, that some of which were built in as early as the 1930s. So maybe nearing the end of their service life. So the school facility side is looking at those, and then they prioritize each of those schools, 1 to 500 and whatever, in a remedy list, right? So the director of the state construction department, his name's Del McComey. The woman he has leading the school facilities is Shelby Carlson. So both of them absolutely wonderful people.
Is this separate from the CapCon project that would allow for new builds? Or is that into the same?
No, same department. Where's Kelly? Same department, and they do both remodels and new construction. And we're going to go through that whole construction funding process here in just a second. So this slide is not showing up as I wanted it, so we'll skip to this one. Anyway, if you're not using my iPad that's screwing this up, what this slide actually shows is a list of all the statutes that are relevant to school construction. And so the main thing, the only thing I hyperlinked there was the definitions section, and you can't see it here because for some reason this is not letting me put it into present mode. So it'll look something like that, where you'll have all the relevant statutes. Honestly, if I were this group, if you're really struggling to sleep one night, read through the definitions section, and then there's another section down here, 116, 2515 116, that talks about the facilities plans. Then 117 is the annual evaluation and prioritizing of construction remedies, and then 118 is the building and facility construction and renovation. So you probably don't need to, if I'm being honest with you, you probably don't need to spend a lot of time in the statutes. I just wanted you to have a link to them. And the reason I don't think you need to spend a lot of time in the statutes is because the next slide, thank you, perfect.
Sorry.
Can that reach?
I'll slide up. So while that's
Keep
booting up.
talking and I'll.
So while that's booting up, so the next slide is going to be the rules. So what rules are is the legislature passes statutes that say we want you to build and manage the school facilities. And so then they have to adopt rules that refine and allow them to implement those statutes. So those are the statutes that I just talked about on that last slide. Here are the rules. So each of these are hyperlinked here. These are the State Construction School Facilities Division rules right here. And so the rules that you're going to be mainly interested in are going to be obviously where's my definitions? Right there. Chapter 1. Chapter 3, the adequacy standards. All the state prescribes exactly what a school building should be like, because they have to deliver what they call the basket of goods, and you're going to hear that term thrown around. And what that means is the curriculum that the state's adopted, that each local district is obligated to make sure is delivered to each and every kiddo. So the buildings have to be adequate. They can't put you in a tough shed and expect you to teach chemistry, right? So they've got adequacy standards that talk about how much lighting, how many electrical outlets, how clean the air has to be.
We'd spoken earlier, is that going to include, and did we find out, does that apply to a potential charter school?
Yeah.
Cool, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, we would have standards. The charter schools are public schools, right?
Right, but we'd spoken about that nuance of whether or not they fall under the exact same rule set, so that's perfect.
Well, I'll tell you this, and I've got, I forgot to introduce, I've got Ms. Carrie Klein with me here as well. So at this point, the Charter School Authorizing Board still needs to finish developing their own rules. So I guess I should put an asterisk on my answer that I gave you.
That's perfect.
But I would suspect, yes, they have to comply with the same standards. They couldn't educate them in a tough shed either, so that they would have similar standards, if not the same standards. So then here's your facility planning right here. This is something that your district is going through right now. Every year they do a facility, or every other year they do a facility plan. This is the year they're doing it, and we're going to talk more about that in just a little bit. You got emergency funding procedures. I think Teton County might have relied on this section a little bit to help with some of the funding that they've recently received. And then Chapter 8 down here, that's your area where we're dealing with the Mercer. And then this is just a little more of an in-depth explanation of what each of those are. Major maintenance is just the money they use to for major repairs. So lawn cutting is routine maintenance. Major maintenance is your building needs a new roof. So that's where that's administered. And then, as I said just a second ago, this is your Mercer process that lays out the rules for the process in here. And then once a Mercer's developed and approved, this is how the state's going to proceed with the remedy. And we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. And then the last one is Chapter 10. You're going to see a term in there, district-initiated project. What that means is, for example, in Laramie County, where I work, swimming pools are not a part of the basket of goods. So each of the high schools in Cheyenne have a swimming pool. Those are district-initiated projects, which means the district has to pay for them. The state will allow you to have them, but they're not going to pay for them. Does that make sense? Great. So this slide here shows you the budget timeline, and the slide after this is going to be the appropriations timeline. But I'm showing this in two different ways. So right now, your school district is in that first 4-month block where the district has been working in concert with the state construction department staff, and they're updating the facilities plan. And the facility plan looks at every single building in the district, and it flags concerns, or it should flag concerns that the district has. Usually those concerns are related to the condition of a building, or that a building is nearing or exceeding capacity. And so they'll flag something that they want to talk about, and you can actually get a Mercer triggered by flagging those sorts of things in your facilities plan. So this is a very detailed plan. I bet it takes the district about 1,500 hours or more to put that plan together. So after that, it then goes over to the school facilities department. They will review that and make any comments. They will rank the facilities based on what they learned, 1 to 500 in terms of who needs remedy first. They'll draw a line in there as to where they think they can get funding from the legislature, and then they'll pass that on, and we'll talk more about that in the next slide. But so you can see they're just finishing this process right now, and then the staff will take this portion of the process, and by the end of the summer, they're making recommendations to joint appropriations, the Select Committee on School Facilities, and then eventually that'll get crafted into a budget bill that both the governor and the Appropriations Committee work on, and then that's forwarded to the legislature, and our good friends like Mr. Byron back there spend the next 8 weeks or 4 weeks. And one thing I should tell, just for the benefit of the public, our legislative sessions are broken up into budget bienniums and then supplemental bienniums, I think you call them. And so we just finished a budget biennium this January, February, and into March. And now in 2024, they're going to hit the supplemental, where they do have some focus on the budget, but most of it's going to be on other bills that they think are important. And then, of course, you know the process. If the budget's approved, then the governor can sign it or line item veto it, or he can veto it. This is a much simpler diagram of exactly what I showed you on the last 2 slides. It just doesn't have the dates, but it shows it step by step, the planning, appropriation, and funding process. So what I want you to get out of this, so a Mercer is how the district and how the department, the State Construction School Facilities Department, figures out how to develop a remedy. And so usually that's going to be a very public, and I know you know a lot of this, but just in case there's any members of the public. So what they'll do is they'll say, we have a capacity concern, for example, and we need that capacity concern addressed. So the state will hire a consultant. The consultant will work with the district and hopefully with the community in driving a series of public meetings. Usually the consultant will come up with a few alternatives just so the public's got something to react to. They might say, let's reconfigure. They might say, let's build a new school. They might say something else. They might say some combination thereof. So anyway, when the public gets these open houses, there will be, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 remedies that the public will consider. But then the public can also suggest their own ideas. So if you don't see your own remedy that you think they should be thinking about, then you can suggest that to the consultant to be incorporated into the Mercer plan.
Now,
So-
is it too late at that point? Or, because are the open houses throughout the entire year, not just like at the end?
No, so those open houses should be coming up this summer, and
Okay.
we can visit with your superintendent to find out when they've got those planned for, or your school board.
Yeah,
I believe there was some confusion
yeah.
by the superintendent on who is in charge of scheduling open houses and who can make the determination on where and when and how many. He said it was outside of district control. He said it was legislative, which.
That they have to be held at the district office. So for us, the hurdle is, we're probably not gonna get commuters to drive to Afton after working. So we just wanna make sure we can hold open houses locally, and it's not a legislative dynamic. So
And-
we'll dig into that.
I will tell you that, I'm not aware of a statute that would require that, and I will tell you that in my experience, we've held these open houses in various locations. In the previous district I was with in Teton, the previous district I was with in Laramie. And the goal really is to get public input. And so we used to, I joked with the chairwoman that we had a swerve to miss mentality.
Yeah.
Like, because if you don't include the public as much as you can, then what'll happen is they'll show up at the 11th hour and say, I don't know anything about this. I'm confused, I feel excluded. But if you had a swerve to miss, that way when that person shows up, you can say, we held multiple open houses in various locations throughout the community. We had a website survey that we sent out. There are a lot of ways that they can engage the public in order to get feedback on these Mercer plans. So I would definitely have a conversation with your superintendent or your school board members to let them know that you think that would be a great way to engage the public and to assure buy-in into these ideas. So after the consultant meets with the public and gets these ideas, he's going to take them, or they are going to take them back to the school board, and the school board's going to vote on those. And typically the school board will rank those. They don't have to, but in Teton, for example, they had one remedy that they liked, and of course your Mercer will show any remedy considered, but that particular school district liked Remedy 3, for example. And so that's what we took to the state construction department. There will be variations on remedies, like it may be reconfigure Etna to K6, but in order to do that, we need additional classrooms. So it may be Remedy 3A, which would be that one. So the school board will get to vote on. Now, in the old days, I'm going to tell you that the school board opinion vote carried a lot of weight with the state, and the reason is these school board members are elected. Their ideas have stood the test of an election, and the idea was bureaucrats like I used to be in Cheyenne didn't. We were appointed. We were there to do work, but our ideas didn't stand the test of a public election. So there was a lot of weight assigned to those. I will tell you, I think that shifted a little bit with the previous school facilities administrator, but I think the new Mr. McComey and Ms. Carlson, I think that they would add a lot of weight to what your school board thinks is the right. That's my opinion only, but I think you might see that pendulum maybe swing a little further this way. So covered a lot of stuff on Mercer's. So one of the things I wanted to show you, so these are factors that the school facilities should take into consideration in reaching a decision. And so I'll just touch on a couple. Any available construction alternatives, including grade reconfiguration and non-capital remedies. So what they're saying there is, hey, rather than spending money, we'd rather look at remedies that don't cause us to spend a lot of money on construction. And so they'll look at enrollment projections, which I know this district has hired some consultants to help them look at. And then they'll also look at where that need ranks with regard to the other 500 districts in the state. And you can see the rest at some other time. But those are the different factors that the School Facilities Commission and the staff will rely on in reaching a decision. And I will draw your attention to this one down here, is it says that they may change their recommendation at any time, the School Facilities Commission. So anyway, I just wanted to draw that to your attention. So that finishes that path. Are there any questions, or do you just want me, Madam Chair, to jump into the next section and hopefully?
I think I have one question.
Sure.
How many, give or take, I mean, I know it just depends, but how many schools within the state are experiencing a Mercer study at the same time? Like, is it, I get it's based on each individual district's needs, so obviously, like, our district was triggered for a Mercer study this year, the last one apparently was 2018, so they're not necessarily weighing it against 500 other buildings, they're weighing it against however many schools are in a Mercer study at that same time, right?
Right, and I don't have the exact number.
Yeah, but it's a limited, it's not every single building in the state at the same
Right.
time. Okay.
And remember, there's still that capital needs list that's out there. So whatever the outcome of these Mercers still gets ranked into that
In that
list
capital
somewhere.
needs list.
So,
Okay.
and then they'll draw a line somewhere in there and request funding based on what they think
Okay.
that number of remedies around the state is going to cost.
And then what would have triggered it for Lincoln County School District 2? Like, would that be something we could access of what the trigger was to do the Mercer?
It was
Yeah.
capacity.
So it was capacity, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, let's see. So this is the Wyoming Department of Education. So we talked about the State School Facilities Commission and their rules and their Chapter 8. This is a different set of rules. So this set of rules is administered by the State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Megan Dagenfelter. So this is under her portfolio. And the reason why I brought this up is because I know there's been a lot of discussion within the community about reconfiguration, and so I wanted to just touch on these. You can see I've hyperlinked in Chapter 8 right there, so in your free time you can take a look at that. But the thing that I wanted to point out for your attention, to bring to your attention right here, is that subsection B there. There's a deadline of June 15th of each year. So if you guys as a community wanted a reconfiguration, you would need to submit a request, not you, but the superintendent, you're off the hook. The superintendent.
We're okay submitting.
Unfortunately, we're
Actually.
totally off the hook because they've declined.
They just.
Okay.
Until the Mercer study is complete,
Yeah,
and then they'll.
they've declined to make any action.
So that means, according to this rule, that then
We'd have to
the
do it
first
before.
consideration would be June 15th of next year, right?
Which
So
then
2025.
affects 26.
Exactly.
27.
So it's going to take them about a year, several months to a year. And the reason is there's a lot of thought that needs to go into these reconfiguration requests. It affects personnel, it affects busing, it affects the capacity of individual classrooms. There's a lot, and the community usually has some pretty strong opinions on these things, so they really are careful and thoughtful about how they do this. At the end of the process, the superintendent of public instruction will come up with a recommendation, but before she refers that to you, she's going to reach out to Del McComey in the state construction department to make sure excuse me, that he doesn't have any concerns from a capacity of facilities standpoint. You're not going to force a building into an overcrowded condition, that sort of thing. For example, one of the things, if you've got a K3 and you switch it to a K6, well, now you've got to likely change the playground equipment, right? So that you've got K6, because sometimes it's pretty narrowly. So if the state construction director and the superintendent agree, then they're going to send a letter back to the district. But to your point, it does put you out about 2 years now if they want to. I would expect the Mercer to take you a fair part of the summer to get through.
So if the Mercer supported reconfiguration as a remedy, and we could apply before next June 15th, with the Mercer as our support system, would that look even better to Megan's office? Or they're gonna do their own?
I think so.
Due diligence?
Yeah.
I guess, is it just supporting?
I think if it came as a preferred alternative and the state construction director were saying, look, this is in the best interest of the state, I'm not saying I know that, I'm just
Yeah.
saying
Oh, yeah.
hypothetically, but if he were saying this is in the best financial interest of the state, then I think that adds some weight to that recommendation.
All right.
Any other questions on
No,
this
sorry.
process? Okay, so that's all right there if you need to refer back to it. I also include, so this next section we're going to talk about briefly is the charter schools. So what I did here was I put the charter school website right there, so you can get there. And then the charter school authorizing board information is right here at this link. So in the past, it used to be that school districts were the group that authorized, or the SLIB boards were the groups that authorized charter schools. So in 2023, our legislature changed that to create this charter school authorizing board. So that's another route. The SLIB board is no longer available, right, as a board that would consider that type of excuse me, request. So now you're either going to go to your local school board or to this here. So
Okay.
I've just included both of those items right there. So this is my last slide, and I just brought this up because I wanted, my contract ends at the end of this month, and I wanted this, of course, you're always welcome to call me if you have questions, but I wanted to try to help you be as effective as you could, because these processes are lengthy, they're frustrating, so on and so forth. So the first thing I would tell you is to be patient. Like I indicated before, these seemingly simple decisions can take over a year even to decide about a reconfiguration, let alone constructing a new school. So it's really important to be patient. Same thing, have reasonable expectations about how long things are going to take you. The next one I would say is the most important one in my view, civility. It's so hard when you get at the microphone or you have a conversation with a decision maker and they say something that triggers something visceral in you, and it's so hard. I always tell myself, if it feels good, don't say it. The right thing to say, those are hard things to say. The wrong things to say are easy to say, but they're things that you can regret later. So I would tell you this. There are a lot of decision points in this process. Like the one we just talked about, you're going to have a Mercer, then you're going to have a school board decision, then you're going to have an SFD decision, and then you're going to go see the legislators. And so there are going to be multiple points where you're going to have a decision. And so what I would challenge you here to do is to be what I call radical incrementalists. If you get a piece of what you're looking for, declare victory, and then politely and persistently move to the next decision maker in the process and ask again and try to get some more. And I would tell you that it's important for you to have what I call an elevator speech, which is less than a 2-minute speech in the amount of time it would take to walk Representative Byron from the committee room to his floor chamber. You should be able to tell him what you want, why it's important, and why your community is going to benefit in that amount of time. So put together an elevator speech concerning what you want, and remember, you have multiple stops. Don't feel like you got to win today. Win a piece today, but take the long view. This workflow one, I wasn't sure what to name it. I originally had it chain of command, but what I'm trying to say here is sometimes we get frustrated with the folks who are involved at a particular stage in a process, and so you want to go over their head. And I do know the Mercer Company is a great company, but say you were hypothetically frustrated with them and you wanted to go to Del McComey about that. His first call is gonna be to Shelby, and Shelby's call is gonna be the superintendent, and the superintendent's gonna be so they're gonna be confused about why you got the call. So if you can, I would tell you elevate up through that process until you get to Del or the governor in that process. So just follow the process and you'll have a lot more credibility. And the last one is just be respectful. We talk about this a lot, and it's really hard, especially when you're passionate about something or upset about something, to be respectful. But it makes you look like a pro, even if people aren't being respectful to you. So as you go through this process, deep breath before you send an email, go make a sandwich, those sorts of things. So, Madam Chair, a couple of next steps. So when I wrote this PowerPoint, you hadn't met with the school board. You have now. They hadn't had the kickoff meeting. They have now. So I would say work with your superintendent and school board to make sure that you get a robust set of community meetings where all ideas are considered and taken seriously. And then after that, you'll go to the school facilities division. Those meetings move around the state, so you'll just have to, and I can help try to keep you apprised of where those are.
Attend one of those.
Yeah, but we'll wait for the one that your Mercer's at, right? Okay? So I already talked about the elevator speech. One thing that I just threw in as a suggestion, you may talk to the superintendent or to the school board trustees and just ask for maybe a quarterly update or whatever interval, every month, every other month. Get an update from them about what's going on with the Mercer process and where it's at, just so that you're knowledgeable and engaged. And I don't think that's an unreasonable interval, but figure out the one that works for you. Madam Chair, that was a lot of stuff in 30 minutes, but I did it in 31 minutes.
So impressive.
So before the end of the month, because I know we
Yes.
have you for 2 more weeks.
Uh-huh.
I think the biggest thing is we did get a copy of the current facilities plan, which I shared with you. And
I read
then
that.
you gave us some great feedback. My biggest thing when you said let's take a little chunk at a time. My hope, and I would love to work with the committee, is how do we, because if it is a capacity issue, I guess we need to figure out where is this capacity issue. But secondly, of how to insert something about the growth of Alpine, the growth of this end of the valley into this year's facilities plan. Because it's like we've discussed in the past, if we're not addressing that Alpine is the fastest growing town in Wyoming, and we're not addressing the influx of, a migration of people into this facilities plan, it's like, where's the story we're telling over the next 2 years? And I think, and I brought it, Alex Norton's study is exactly that. They paid for this data, and so I guess our hope is, if we could over the next 2 weeks, figure out what is something we could present to attach to the facilities plan, or request that the board and the superintendent address that.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So I would tell you that you could, the easiest way to get it in the facilities plan, because they haven't turned it over to the state yet.
Yeah.
This is a staff level plan, the facilities plan, it's a technical plan. So I would reach out to the superintendent
Okay.
and say, hey, I think it would be fantastic if you attached Alex Norton's study to it, so that we can at least begin to tell the tale that we do have concerns. We're one of the faster growing communities in the state of Wyoming. We know that we may not be busting at the seams today, but we know we can see the train coming down the tracks, and we want to start the conversation here, because otherwise, whenever you start the conversation, that's when they document you starting the conversation. So it's probably not going to be determinative, but it's nice to at least have in there so that in future years you can go back and say,
We brought this up in-
we were prophets and told you in whatever year that this is something we need to be watching carefully.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. Okay.
Thorough. I appreciate it. I think I will be diving into this presentation a lot and be able to click on those links and read a little bit more, and might be reaching out to you in the
Call me.
next couple of weeks, and if I've got any questions. But I really do appreciate the thoroughness and the depth of everything, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's a ton of information. It's so great to have the links to be able to fall back on, so thank you for your time and effort.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, dumbing it down for
I
us.
didn't know that. That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Mr. Doherty, I just have one question. This is Emily.
Hi, Emily.
Hi, thank you so much for sharing this. I feel like I, just speaking for myself, have been enlightened about the processes and the tools that we have at our disposal. My question is, I'm sure that you've seen our interactions, probably most importantly at the workshop, and I know every school board member is different, but you have so much knowledge to draw on as far as how to get our points across so that people are receptive in the right way. And I just would like to know your thoughts on how we've communicated at the workshop. Were there any points that we need to hammer down in the future as we open up communication? What can we do better moving forward?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I tried to log on to the workshop, but I couldn't see that it was televised. I saw the board
Yeah,
meeting was,
They did not televise.
but I did get a
Oh, I
debrief.
forgot. I
Yeah.
apologize. I
Yeah.
forgot they did not.
They did not
publicly
Yeah,
record
you didn't
that.
miss anything. They did not televise the workshop. I just gave you my
Debrief.
Summary.
colorful summary. What I experienced. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe, I mean, yeah, I don't know. how to-
Kelly, you brought
How
up
you
some
would
of
answer
the
that
comments,
question.
some of the obstacles that you think we will be facing. I think one was the suggestion that Teton County take on these students. I thought that was out of left field because that doesn't take into account our valley's needs at all.
No.
And then, of course, the infrastructure costs. I think those were and the Mercer study, but I think those were the biggest
And the housing problem that they want
questions,
Alpine to
right?
solve for the district.
Right.
Yeah, it was
Well,
interesting and enlightening.
I know that Teton County has closed their borders to outside
We
enrollment, so,
notified him of that too.
Yeah.
We just said that isn't even an option for
Yeah.
us. And not that anyone actually wants that as the sustainable option.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
I mean,
long-term.
the ideal solution is to have a school and an education system in the county in which we pay taxes towards
Yes.
that
Right,
school, so.
that suggestion made zero sense to me.
Yeah, yeah, so lots of hills, to climb.
But Emily, I would say it's always wise to talk with your superintendent as well as your school board members, because that's what they're there for, is to hear your thoughts and your suggestions and to carry those back to the other school board members and the superintendent. But I would say as long as you're respectfully communicating all that stuff, they're usually pretty delighted to hear from you.
Yeah. I think we'll just ask to get on the agenda every other month.
Oh,
And
perfect.
just say then that would be our touch point of how the Mercer is going. When can we help you schedule
Great.
a town hall at the Civic Center? Like, we would love
Right.
to do the legwork to assist the consultant to make it as seamless as possible. And I think the biggest is, the one good thing of social media, is that we could get a larger attendance that would make a difference. Because I think you said it best. No one wants to be late to the party.
Yeah.
Like, you want to give your 2 cents. And
Yeah.
that's-
And Madam Chair, if it's ever of interest to you, I'd be delighted to reach out to the superintendent as well and visit with him and his team. So just let me know.
Okay,
Great.
thank you very much. Anything else, Emily?
I don't know, does the public of anyone else that would like to chat with us, please? We do not want to hog the mic.
Madam Chair, Eric Green, concerned citizen.
Angry concerns.
Yes. Thank you for having this meeting, and thank you for coming and presenting. Appreciate all that information. Directly from the superintendent, the chairman of the school board, he said, reach out to them.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the best way to go. If we want to get something changed on the facilities plan, we should probably do it sooner rather than later.
Yes.
And email all the school board and see if we can get some traction that way. That would just be my recommendation. And one thing that we kind of have lightly touched on through this whole process, and I don't know if anyone else in the audience might have information to this as well, but let's just say, I know there's legislative issues with getting a charter school, like in the next couple of years, there's a moratorium and all that stuff, and maybe something loosens up. But could anyone in the room give us like a really brief, this is what it would take, this is how you get a charter, these are the steps that you would have to go through, this is how the school gets funded, who you have to put a school board together, and then they have to write the charter, and then what's the length of all those different areas, and is it a similar thing that you had 6 to 8 years potentially of a remedy? Is that what we'd be looking at for getting a charter school? So I thought that might be good. I hate to hijack your meeting, but I thought that might be good information.
Okay.
So
Yeah, so the moratorium doesn't apply necessarily. In this last legislative session, our wonderful legislative members, Andrew Byron and Dan Dockstetter, as well as Jeff, spent a lot of time in Cheyenne and were successful in adding to the budget an exception to the moratorium, and a charter school was granted in western Wyoming, which benefits us in 2 ways. Number one, it limits our competition, to say. A school in Sheridan doesn't apply. A school in Cheyenne doesn't apply. It's limited to western Wyoming. And then Carrie, I think, can answer the rest of the questions because she's far more knowledgeable than me. But I do know that much. So.
Yeah, so just for the record, Carrie Klein, I'm with the Wyoming Public Charter School Association. Just by way of some history, I've been working with charter schools in the state for over a decade, actually just started back again in the space last 3 years. So yes, there was some legislative changes that open up an opportunity for a charter school to be approved through the state authorizing board this year. So what that process looks like at this point, they will accept applications June 1st through July 1st this year. And once that happens, then it goes before the authorizing board. Statutorily, the process takes about 90 days from that time frame. So you're looking August, September, October, and then you will know at that point whether there is an approval or a denial at that point. From there, you're realistically, from the time that you put your application in to when a school would open, I would say realistically is 18 months. So if you were to apply this June and that application was approved, you could open fall of 25.
If you have.
So the building is a huge piece, right? And part of your application is the facility plan. And so if you can stand up a building that fast, and I have no doubt that you could make that happen. There's a lot of people that are very good at building quickly. There are other, the building that you start in isn't the building you have to end in either. Some charter schools will start in a temporary space for a year, 2 years, and then with the plan to either build another building or add on, whatever that might be.
who pays for that building?
So we also passed legislation this year that you don't have to wait for 3 years. So beginning year 1, you fall under the state leasing program. So the state will be paying a lease agreement for your facility. You are a public school. A charter school is a public school. Therefore, you are treated as a public school. So the state is obligated to provide a facility for public schools, and a charter school does count as an entity. Mm-hmm.
So can you build it on the school zone, or that's off limits?
No, you can.
You could, so like
Yes.
we have down in Trail Creek, we have a school zone, so you could apply to build it on school property. Okay.
Or state land.
Or state land, I
Yeah.
guess I should say, I shouldn't say school property, but.
Yeah, there's no requirements or restrictions about, other than he talked quickly about the adequacy standards. So as a public school, receiving state, dollars, there are requirements that the state has. The School Facility Commission will, and the School Facilities Department, they will look at all the calculators that go into the model for what your dollar amount would be for, that you would get as a lease payment.
That's what was my next
Yeah,
question.
yeah,
I was like,
so-
what are we talking, 500 a month?
No, they have calculators.
Thank you. Okay.
Basically, you're looking at number of square feet, grade configuration. They compare commercial real estate in the area if you're not in. So a caveat, and this wouldn't apply to you, but just for general knowledge, if there is an empty school district building, a charter school must be offered that building at no cost to the charter school. It's not going to happen here, right? So, but just FYI, that in other communities, that's come into play with their facility.
And to clarify, this is separate from ADM per student.
Correct.
And as a public school, the state would offer a charter school the same consideration financially when it comes to transportation and food. Is that correct?
So the way the statute reads right now, charter schools are entitled to 100% of the average daily membership costs. So you get 100% of the ADM. You are eligible for 100% of reimbursement for transportation, busing, and for food services. And then there are some levels of the school funding model where charter schools do not get 100%. One of those is central office. You get pieces of central office, but not all of it. So you get 100% for janitorial staff. You don't get 100% for an FTE for an office manager. So there's a little bit of, you do qualify for 100% of routine maintenance. Major maintenance is a little bit different. You get one or the other, you don't get both. And your major maintenance runs through your school district. It's a district level calculation and an amount. It's not a school level. Your routine maintenance is a school level, so your building would be eligible for that routine maintenance.
They'll do a pass-through for you
Gotcha.
of your major maintenance.
Through the district.
Yes.
Okay.
Money for charter schools, the funding flows through the district. That's a constitutional provision here in Wyoming. So the state ADM funding flows through the district. The district then receives the calculations of what needs to be passed to you. Same with facility fundings. Those payments are made through the district.
So one of the questions, we had like 50, but we won't do those tonight. So one of the things that's really hard to understand, and I hope I can figure it out. So when, say 100 kids went to this charter school in Alpine, and the district loses $1.7 million in ADM, are you seeing across the state budget shortfalls because of this money going to charter schools? That's just something that's been hard for us to kind of wrap our head around, where we've always gone to, what is the path of least resistance? Okay, reconfiguration. But we also know there's a large push, and I would have loved it for my children, to have a school in the town limits. But yeah, I guess that's my question, as far as how does this all, like, kind of the trickle-down theory?
Sure. Well, so there are several things to consider when you look at charter school funding and how it flows out of a district. You will hear people say, well, the money is tied to the kid, and that ultimately is true, right? Per student, that money follows the student for whatever school. If you have students in District A and they move and now they're in District B, same thing. That money no longer is in District A, regardless of if they went to a charter school or they just moved in there and now they're in a different traditional school. One of the things that's built in statutorily is that districts have a 3-year rolling average for their ADM funding. So when a charter school opens, every year districts have a recalibration, like they have a true up is what they call it. So they in essence have 3 years to take the impact and spread that out. So if 100 students leave, that budget doesn't really drop by 100 for 3 years. And so we see districts use that 3-year rolling average anyway, because they're trying to account for number of students coming in and out of a district all the time. I mean, community like Campbell County, where you have coal mines, where huge fluctuations, which was the reason that 3-year average was set up to begin with, was to help mitigate the impact that other economic influencers have on when students transport in and out of districts. Some of it also, and I don't know what it is around here, but in a lot of areas, charter schools, when they open, pull in a lot of homeschooled kids, which aren't attached to any district anywhere for the first place. So yes, we cannot say it's not an impact on a district, because it is. But I think oftentimes we find that districts react, maybe wonder how this, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose $1 million. And I understand that part of the conversation, especially with very rural parts of Wyoming, for a district like Laramie County that has 13,000 students, to lose 100 is like 0.001% of their budget, right? Well, if you have a much smaller district, those 100 students leaving does make a greater impact. But I think clear communication and the understanding that it's a 3-year cycle, so they're still going to get that funding for a couple of years to make those changes.
And really, we've drilled down on budgets, and it's about 2 to 3%.
Right.
For Lincoln County. So we just wanted to, we're doing our homework best we can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, anything else? I mean, we can dig in
There's a
later.
gazillion
There is
things,
a gazillion,
but yeah, I mean, for the purpose of today.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll just throw out there, Madam Chair, she has my card, and as the state association, part of what our job is to do is to help answer questions for founding groups and to point you in the right direction to resources, so.
Okay. I sincerely appreciate your effort and look forward to talking to you more, Carrie. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Emily, do you have anything else?
No, I think for the purposes of next step moving forward, I just wanted to make sure we were on the right track with who to reach out to and how to gain more resources. So I think all of those questions were answered.
Mm-hmm. And I guess my one comment would be to the public that this committee is dedicated to exploring all options for education for our children, both the charter school route as well as working with our local school district. And the hope is that we can make headway in both directions until we decide and discover what is best for the students on this end of the valley. So,
And I'll also say there's going to be, and we were notified this during the school board meeting, there will be 4 open positions on the school board. So one of the things I do think as a voter in Lincoln County is I would do your research, and we really want to encourage anyone who wants to run for the board that we would appreciate that, just so that.
yes, with the caveat that
Yeah.
there's
By location.
one at-large
Yeah.
coming up for reelection and 3 area positions.
Yes.
So the chairman of the school board did make it clear the entirety of Lincoln County will be voting for
Yes.
all positions, but in order to run for an area-specific position, you have to live in that area.
Yes.
And then the at-large is
At-large.
anywhere, anyone. So,
Yes.
okay,
Okay.
cool. That wasn't, sorry.
I don't know. I think
I don't know
we're
how to close the meeting.
good. We'll adjourn.
I'm not very
Oh,
good
wait,
at
Dave
the.
has something to
Oh,
say.
sorry, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah.
The formalities are not my,
Yeah.
you know.
So just kind of a summary of like the last few weeks and
Yeah.
for us. So like my opinion is this kind of simple, lay it out simply, that it's going to be 10 years for us to get anything done with our local district, is my opinion. To get things changed, to get, I think in 10 years from now, we will still be in this, I don't see any major direction changing. So I think that we have to be united. One thing I heard at the last meeting that we went to, that we have to be united and go a direction. And we can't have two groups. We're talking about exploring, we're gonna explore this school over here, and we're gonna explore the charter school over here. I think we explored the district option, and I think that that option is gonna be, in 10 years, we're looking back like, okay, are we still doing this? And I think the other option is do we explore the charter school? The charter school has a pathway that is, it could be 18 months, it could be 2 or 3 years, but it is a pathway to a finish line, which is a beautiful thing. What we saw today was beautiful. A charter school that was successful, with a waiting list, with a, a really good, results, with ACT scores that are beating the average, with, it was just it was an incredibly enlightening experience of charter schools. From my perspective, and where I would like to see us go, is I think we're on hold on the district level for at least a year. I think we need to say, let's go charter school. And I think that we need to be a group that, I guess what I'm kind of saying is I'd like to start a group, and I would like to lead this direction, going to the charter school route. I want to pick a team that wants to go with me. And that's where I think that's where I'm heading. And I guess what I'd like to encourage anybody that wants to be on that part of that team, I'm not going to say tonight anybody has to answer that question, but if anybody wants to be on my team and go this direction, that's where I want to go. Just reach out to me if you have that interest. I don't see another pathway. That's my word.
Thanks, Dave.
With that in mind, I completely disagree. And as our representative to the school board, it's incumbent upon you to keep pushing for Alpine. Charter school might solve some problem, but it's not going to solve our long-term problems. We need a school in Alpine, and we need the school board to figure that out. If the reconfiguration happens, and we can get K through 6 there, and then when the town of Alpine's population justifies it, we'll be able to justify getting a K through 6 school here. We don't know what the charter school needs to be, but we have to keep pushing forward. And I think you should definitely be pushing forward. And I'm disappointed to hear that you would like to go in just one direction. We need to keep all of our options open, and we need to keep pushing heavily on all options, and eventually something will break loose. So.
Well, and I'm just wondering, if we don't go united at one direction, if we go united 2 different directions and we're exploring this and exploring that, we're a joke. We have to be united and go a direction. That's a fact. We will be. We have to go. If we want to get something done, this is a difficult task at best. 10 years from now, we will be in the same boat. If we, in my opinion, and you can ask other people's opinions. I don't know what Jeff's opinion, Kelly's opinion. We all have different ones, but my year and a half of being on the school board or whatever it's been, that's what I see in 10 years from now, we'll be in the same boat. If we have an opportunity to go charter school. I think it's amazing what can be done with the charter school. I would love for you guys to see a successful charter school, that what can happen, what we saw today. What did you think, Kelly?
It definitely was eye-opening. I was trying to envision a much smaller scale. Anything's possible. I do think that it's nothing short of a miracle that the legislature was able to get a variance for another charter immediately. At the risk of sounding like our local school board, I hesitate to immediately jump in one direction without putting thought into the process and seeing how the model would apply here. I was definitely impressed with what we saw today in Salt Lake. So it was the American Preparatory Academy. They are a charter school that's been in operation 20 years?
20 years.
20 years, growing. They have 2 K through 6 models in the greater Salt Lake area, a 7 through 12 school. They're opening another one in Cedar City next year. The curriculum, it was all very impressive, well thought out. The implementation was there. I definitely want to read through what we were given and kind of absorb a little bit more, share it with the committee.
Definitely.
But for the first time, I kind of saw that that could be a viable option. Granted, the building is
Yeah.
a huge thing. The couple kind of questions I left with, the idea that we can find qualified educators like that at, maybe a salary deficit is, in my mind, not attainable. There's some hurdles that I think are specialized to our community that we need to explore a little bit more, in my opinion. But for the first time, I really saw a viable alternative option instead of continuing to beat our heads against the brick wall that is Lincoln County School District number 2.
How big of an area are they drawing from?
They're drawing from the whole Salt Lake Valley. They're also competing against numerous other charter schools, private schools. Utah has some different rules. There's no transportation. People drive their children to this school because they want their children to be in this school. I was pleasantly surprised at the diversity that existed in that school. My other concern, I guess, would be, I asked some questions about special education, IEPs, things of that nature that we would have to navigate in our community. They're able to handle it. Would we be able to? I don't know. Their ADA is lower in Utah. So it's a lot. It's a lot to
ADM.
ADM, sorry, ADM. I had APA written.
Can I ask a
The
question?
age bracket of this school?
So they have a K through 6, and then immediately behind it is a 7 through 12. And then they have a second K through 6 campus that's 2 miles down the road that feeds into that same 7 through 12. And then they're opening in Cedar City, I think a K-12.
In Las Vegas.
They had Las Vegas,
have
they
that.
don't anymore.
Oh, okay.
She said. They opened a school in Las Vegas. Am I mistaken?
No, I was just going to, if it's helpful, so right now in the state of Wyoming, there is a Snowy Range Academy, is a classical academy in Laramie. It's been open for 25 years. They have around 250 students. There's a Montessori charter school in Laramie that has about 65 students. Hodera Academy has 2 campuses in Cheyenne, and they're running about total elementary and high school, probably about 300 students. The new school in Chugwater that opened this year is about 80 students. So schools.
That's K through 12.
That's K through 12. Yes, so just to point out, I'm not trying to sway any conversation, just to
Okay,
point out
no.
that a school does not have to be large. There are very small rural charter schools that are very effective and thrive.
So I have a couple questions for Carrie, and I know everyone is on a time crunch, so I don't want to make this. So one of the questions now that we're kind of deep diving a little bit is, I had 10. So recruiting teachers, because it's a public charter school, is there still that pension with the state? So all of those things they do get a pension, okay?
Those are all still, they can take and
Okay.
participate in the school or in the state
Pension, okay.
insurance.
Okay, and health insurance, so we have I guess the question is.
This
are-
particular charter did not participate in Utah.
That's in, and I
And
don't
so
even
that's like
compare
some
the
of the
two.
nuances that,
Okay,
Yeah.
so they can. And then health insurance, is it the same buying power as the district you're residing in?
it's through the
Through the
district.
district. But you would be using the ADM money? If the district will contract with us. Okay, and then my other question, and we jokingly say this, we can barely get volunteers to sit up here with us. And we've put in, I mean, we're driving to Afton, we're having several meetings. I mean, we've done so many volunteer hours, we're like, okay, we have to make money too and do our jobs. How does it work as far as a board? Are they vetted? I would assume there is a board that runs a charter school, so I guess that's my question to you is, how many bodies do we need?
So there is nothing statutorily that defines what your board has to look like or how many people. It is not an elected board. It is a board that you put together. Typically, we see a charter school have a founding board.
Okay.
And that founding board then has you outline your governance structure. So after, let's say, the first 2 years, you have a governance structure where maybe you outline in your contract that your board will have one member of an at-large from a parent and one from a community, so you can figure that how you want to, and that board is in charge of overseeing then your school. So it's like taking a school board at a district level and putting it right on the school. So you
But
mini,
not
You do
mini
have
school
to-
board.
But not elected, so appointed.
The-
But they've gotta have skin in the game. I mean.
Well, that is their school.
Yeah,
That
so
is,
that's what I really.
Yes.
And that was one of the things that we kept bringing up
So-
is.
Some charter schools have little mini elections within their school group to be on the board.
Okay, and then that, I mean, because I'm doing the microcosm from
Yeah.
this big of a district to this little. So then you don't really have like a superintendent that runs the school, or you
You have
do?
administrative,
Yeah, so your board, the founding board will hire a principal,
Okay,
school
so just-
leader, sometimes they call them directors, headmasters, principal, and then, good governance would suggest that you hire the principal, and the principal is the one that you have tasked with running your school.
Okay.
Right, so the accountability is right there. And you as a board are accountable to your authorizer. That's where the accountability lies then with the authorizer, who
At the state level.
has granted you a 5-year charter, a contractual agreement. And in Wyoming, it's good for 5 years, and then you go through a renewal process.
Okay. That, I mean, that helps. Those were just, some of my questions. I'm still on the fence of, we have a district for a reason, and I would love to follow that path, but I'm definitely, again, our job was to look at all options. I think the building is, and I mean, maybe there were discussions today, I'm still trying to figure out, as Mayor Green brought up, who pays for that building? And I understand the lease option changes it to whoever has built it is covering some of those costs, but that's a huge one.
Well, I think, I think we have to like open our minds to things that are beyond us a bit. So, and I think we have to kind of trust the process also. They were telling us today, we can do a bond that's backed up by the rent, the ADM money, backed up by the ADM money, but we're also gonna get a lease from the state.
And I
So,
understood the lease portion.
no, so again, these guys can say they can make 100 student school work with 10,000 ADM. So we have 15,000 or 16.5 ADM, and they think they can make it easily work with 100 students, which we have. I mean, I'm gonna tell you, this school is exciting. We could have, I think day one we'll have 200. I think the day before long we'll have 400. I think it's gonna be bigger than, it's gonna be a big draw. It's gonna be a world-class facility that's amazing for this town. I think we start off K through 8. We solved the junior high school. We got 8 years to offer these kids, and then I think we'll expand it to K through 12, or do a second building with the as it grows. But I mean, I'm excited that this is actually a viable thing that we can control, that we can make happen. This is something that we can. There is a pathway to make this happen, And I'm gonna say, I'm willing to help lead this pathway. To me, this is more viable than any other pathway we have. And for a year and a half, I've been beating my head against the same wall. So, that's where I'm at, and I'm only one voice, but.
Yeah, and I have to, I kind of jokingly like recuse myself from the education side. I'm a passionate parent. I've lived here 20 years. I do a lot of research, the best I can. But I do defer, and I wish, Heather was here, because I think that's where I really want to delve into. It's outside of my wheelhouse as far as the inner workings. And so it's like, is it K through 6? Is it this? Those are the.
Would you guys be opposed to going down and seeing what we saw today? I mean, it was worthwhile.
I would love to, I wish I could have gone today. I think it's still really, really early. Unless, the process is, now we have to put in the application before July 1st.
Yep.
Who does that?
So yeah, today was enlightening on several fronts. Oh, Andrew.
I would consider attorney if the public can't hear these discussions, or the recording.
Oh.
Yeah, we'll need to go up there, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. And then, if there's more questions.
Yeah.
We can.
And maybe this is, it's already 6:20. If this is a whole other town hall, I'm not opposed to holding an actual, let's advertise this, let's have discussions. Because what I would love to see, and we try this all the time, I'd love to see 50 parents sitting in a room with us, because I feel like we're somewhat in a vacuum at the moment. And I would love, Kelly, as chairwoman, just went to this charter school today. So we have not even gotten a debrief. So I feel like I'm sitting here, I'm listening. I've spent so much time working on the district presentation that my head is like, okay, I would love to hold a public town hall, let them know what our discussion is. I will be educated. We will have both sides. I'd love to invite the district. I'd love to have the charter school discussion, and then start to get public opinion.
Yeah, so I'll say, I was talking to Andrea on the way back. I feel that there has been a lack of communication and a lack of transparency from our local school district for as long as back as I can remember. And that it's very important that we basically do the exact opposite. And we are very transparent and very open to communication. And I think that it would benefit the community, all of us, to, we have these amazing resources at our hands with Carrie and Jeff and some of these people that are very nuanced with charter operations in Wyoming. And it would benefit to have a community meeting to kind of explain the process, the difference, the pros, the cons, really just get down to the dirty details of all of it, and get community feedback. I think with support from the community, anything's possible.
And honestly, for me, it's always been sustainability. That's
Yeah.
my key word.
Yeah.
Like you said, accountability. For me, it's what is sustainable? I want to hear, oh, we're sustainable 20 years. We're so sustainable. So
I
not to
do
cut
think, I agree with Dave in the sense that if we could produce something at the caliber of the school that we saw today, that we would draw students from Teton County to come to our school, Hoback to come to our school, all up and down the valley to come to our school. And then I do think, like, this school obviously was much larger than anything that we would do. So they have now integrated sports teams and that kind of stuff. As a public school in Wyoming, without sports, our students would have the option to participate in sports in either direction, Teton County or Lincoln County.
so they are afforded that? with
That's
the
a-
charter school? Okay.
that's a-
So you're not drawn by a line?
That could be a benefit to students to be able to participate. I mean, we're driving the same distance.
As well, transportation is reimbursed, so.
for us.
We could bus those
We
kids.
could bus kids, I
Down
mean.
to Afton and
So,
okay.
I mean, there's a lot to unpack, and that's, I would like to dive into
Yeah.
the details, and then have a public forum and encourage parents, to
Yeah.
come.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
would it be helpful, do you want me to reach out to Carolyn and coordinate with you for when you have that meeting, so that maybe the community has the benefit of hearing what she could say?
Yeah, and I mean, we're ongoing. I think we're gonna speak with Mitch as well, Schwab, who is here in Afton, who has dealt with charter schools in Arizona and New Mexico. But yeah, getting Carol, I haven't even looked through any of the stuff, that I received today, so maybe we have her contact info. But that would be great, I think. Okay, yeah.
And I apologize.
No,
No,
you
I
guys
know,
gotta go.
you have to
Okay.
run. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
It's whatever time,
is
6:20 PM. Thanks, everyone.
I'll give you right back over.
My second all of it is just the way forward is just to get them.